In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create your own stock index to track. So, if there's a certain group of stocks that you want to see how they're doing, and you don't want to necessarily track one by one, you can create your own index to see how it's forming in a certain day compared to the markets or relative to other groups. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. So to start, what I'm going to do is create some tickers here. So stocks like, let's say, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Pinterest, Palantir, Snap, Twitter, Disney, Fubo, Netflix, AT&T, and Viacom. So what I'm going to do is group these by category. So let's say we've got Apple. I'm going to group that into tech, which is obviously really broad, but let's say I want a separate group for just streaming stocks that are known for their streaming business. Obviously Apple, you could put in both. So what I'm going to do though is pull the prices for these values, for their stock values, and then weigh them based on their market cap. So to pull market cap in Google Sheets, I'm going to use the Google Finance function, select the ticker, and then for attribute, just type in market cap. And I'm going to divide this just because it's such a huge number. I'm just going to keep going and adding zeros until, it gets reasonable 2.4 trillion. Sounds about right. Get rid of some of these zeros. And actually maybe first add that 1,000 separator first, and copy this down. And so now this looks a bit more reasonable. So what I'm going to do is now add a weight field and say, okay, I'm going to take this value, divide it by, I'm going to use the SUMIF function to say I'm looking at this entire range and I want to look at all the tech category. So I'm going to divide 2411 divided by the total of all these tech values, right? So this looks, actually I have to freeze these cells before I copy this down. And now I can fill these down. And so a good way to check is I can just sum these up, and sure enough, that adds up to 100%. The streaming category adds up to 100%. So obviously the big stocks like Disney and Apple and Amazon are going to take a big chunk of this weight just because I'm basing it off of market cap. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull in the current price of these stocks. So again, I'll go back to the Google Finance function, select the ticker. The attribute we use is price. Copy that down. And now I'm going to use the previous day's price. Again, go back to Google Finance, select the ticker. This time the attribute is going to be close yes. So the closing price yesterday. Close that. Copy that down. Now what I'm going to do is calculate the current value. And what I'm going to do there is just take the current price multiplied by the weight. And this time I can just autofill that. Just clean this up a little bit, get rid of some of those decimals. And then the same thing for the previous value. So previous price times the weight, and copy that down. And I can use the format painter just to copy that over. So now that I've got my values, these are the two columns that I'm going to use to determine my weighting. So let's say I want to look at tech and streaming to see, okay, how did these two groups of stocks do today? So for tech, what I'm going to do is create a SUMIF function and say, okay, I'm going to take the current value. So first I'm going to look at if it's in the tech category. So the criterion has to match tech. And if it does, I'm going to take the current value and then I'm going to divide that by really the same sort of formula, tech, except this time I'm going to divide it by the previous value. And because I want this as a percentage, I'm going to minus 1. And now I've got 0.85%. So again, I'm going to freeze these ranges before I copy it down. But now what I can do is pull that down, and now I can see that the streaming stocks did a bit better at 2.5%. And so an easy way to check that is, I can sum up their values. So under the current value, these streaming stocks added up to 272.54, and on the previous day they were worth 265.85. So this divided by this minus by 1, 2.52% rounded. So that's a quick way that, if you wanted to track a group of stocks or a specific sector that maybe you haven't found an ETF that it is good for capturing, then you can create your own mix of stocks and essentially your own type of index that you can track to see how it's doing compared to the markets, and to identify maybe opportunities or where stocks are falling, where stocks are rising. So that's how you could do that using market cap as your weight. Obviously, you could do any sort of weighting system you want. This is just one example. So hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.